Hey guys, my name is Shani and welcome to another episode of Hey Sunshine, the podcast. And tonight I am joined with Hollie Azzopardi. Now, Hollie is a great friend of mine. She lives in Byron as well. And you're quite an array of things. So I'm gonna try my best at doing a little intro here.
Right.
So Hollie is a writer, an author, speaker, podcast host, a coach. I want to say like part-time model as well, and also a beautiful mama and wife. So Hollie, thank you for taking your time tonight out of your very busy schedule to be with us and chat all things woo-woo and psychic and you.
you. Thank you for having me, Sean. I'm really excited.
Oh, I can't wait to dive in. So I really like to open up the conversation just with a question about magic. So what is magic to you? What does that word mean? Just riff on that for a bit.
Yeah, magic to me, it's a good question, by the way. I've never been asked that before.
Ooh, good.
But it's so much of my life, right? It makes up a huge component of my life and what I teach and what I do with my life. To me, magic is all that cannot be explained by the logical mind. So there's no clear or evidential reason for why something is occurring. And that could be in a multitude of ways. It could be the serendipitous nature of a sign or a song that's following you around, or it could be a more deeper connection with magic, could be a deep relationship with your intuitive knowing or maybe your psychic senses. I see magic in love. I see magic in nature. Nature's like magic
100%.
equals nature.
Yeah, it's literally just look at a flower. It's perfect.
Seriously, magic, stars, magic, the cosmos, magic. For me, magic is a lens to see life through. And when you put the magic lens on, everything is brighter and more alive and more intentional and more sparkly. And that is magic to me.
I love that. It's like when you put on those like really cool like sepia glasses and like your whole world just like turns into this multicolored amazing world. And that's really like what I want this podcast to be. People start seeing things through a different lens. And it's like we're taking off the old glasses and we're putting on our magic unicorn fairy glasses and we're literally seeing the best things possible. So thank you. That was such a beautiful opening to this chat today. So before we dive into you and your journey, I really want to chat because I feel like this is really going to land for people. But like, what is your star sign? What is your human design? Because this is really going to set the framework for our chat today.
Oh yeah, I'm here for it. You know I love this stuff. So sun is in Leo, moon is in Libra, and rising is Gemini. So I'm a double air fire. But my other personal planets are in Virgo. So I've got 3 Virgo placements, 3 Capricorn placements. So the back end of my chart is all earth. So I'm a very airy, earthy person. I've got pretty much no water. And then my human design is I'm a self-projecting projector and I'm a 3-5.
Yeah. Okay. And like we share the common ground of the 3-5 profile.
Love that for us.
For anyone who's not listening, and Hollie, I'm sure you can elaborate on this a bit further, but it's like we literally have to learn all the lessons in life to then get to that one point or the thing that makes sense. So for me, it's a visual of like running down the hallway and opening doors, and then just like bumping into walls till you get to the main door. And like, you know, we've tried, both of us, so many different career paths, so many different things to get where we are now.
It's a really good visual.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about like maybe what you do first, and then maybe unpack like the journey of how you got to where you are.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I am a new mum. So that question in this kind of postpartum experience is, well, what I do with most of my time is I mother my daughter. But in terms of the business that I run and how it's evolved over coming on to 7 years now, I guide, I mentor, I intuit and channel, and I write. So the basis of everything I do and the way that I show up, whether at a one-on-one capacity, group mentoring, masterminds, there's an undercurrent of intuition, psychic, and wisdom that's channeled through, I guess. So I know that sounds so elusive, but it's so hard to contain because I'm very adaptable. But I guess the main focus of my work currently in the direction that I'm heading is guiding and leading other people in coming home into their intuitive knowings and their intuitive abilities. And also on the other spectrum, leadership, business growth, and really mentoring as a one-on-one kind of capacity, women stepping into those skills and qualities.
That's so awesome. And honestly, everything you put out, if you're not following on Hollie on Instagram, jump on that bandwagon now. And like, how did you get to where you are? Because obviously you don't just, as a 3-5, we don't just wake up one day and be like, this is what we're doing. Can you unpack the story of Hollie and just like how you got here?
Yeah, so it's interesting you say all the doors opening and some dead ends, because that's how it feels. But I've always likened it to a roller coaster of like extreme highs and extreme lows. And every time I've landed in a low, be that a burnout or a rock bottom or a I can't do this anymore, then off the back of it is a high. And so I come from a history of corporate, but gosh, I've spent longer now in my own business than in corporate land. So it feels like another lifetime ago. And it's the stereotypical story of burnout because my soul wasn't lit up by what I was doing. And at the time, what I discovered and what I kind of tripped into was the world of holistic well-being and guidance around, well, me as a young woman who had lost herself. Like, how can I grow self-love? How can I actually look after myself, mind, body, spirit? And it was first me having that experience myself with other leaders in the field at the time to realize I could do this. And I actually love to inspire other people and share my stories and do this kind of work. So I ended up in coaching under the lens of wellness coaching, which
was it like health coaching?
No, it wasn't. I didn't study IIN, which seems to be what everyone did at the time. I had a tab open on my computer for like
Me too. I feel like everyone.
Yeah. No, I ended up studying with the Wellness Coaching Institute of Australia. So it was holistic wellbeing, mind, body, spirit. But the premise of it was really goal setting and how to set goals and help other people set their goals. And what ended up happening is I was gifted my first deck of cards from my cousin, who is psychic. And she gifted me my first deck. She obviously knew what she was doing. I had no idea at the time. The can of worms she was handing me. And I started to decide to bring them into my coaching sessions. And every time I brought a card in or a crystal would land in my mind or an oil, the client was left going, oh my God, like this is so on point. And that was what started, but it actually started to get really crazy before I honed in on the skills myself. I would wake up limping, for instance, and see a client that day who needed acupuncture in their ankle. Or I would have excruciating cramping, and my client would be going in for endometriosis surgery the next day. So I was starting to get physical manifestations of symptoms that my clients were experiencing. And that's when I went, okay, there's more to this than just like me fluking a card pull. And that's when I started to hone in on my skill set and step into the path of practicing as an intuitive and a psychic.
And what did that journey look like? Because obviously at the start, there might be a little bit of fear that comes up with having these gifts or these skills and not being able to control it, especially when you're feeling other people's stuff. That's heavy. And it's like, okay, I've got to soar back. This isn't mine. How can I get rid of it? So what did your like training and that sort of like unraveling of your gifts look like?
Yeah, so really good question as well, because I don't think people realize when you trip into this work, because it's never really, you don't really go actively seeking it.
No.
You kind of fall into it and then you have to figure it out.
Or it smacks you in the face. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was like constantly sore or sick or like fatigue was just my thing. It was plaguing me. And I actually had asked my dad for Christmas to go into the self-development section of Dimmicks and just buy me a heap of books. And two of the books he bought me were from my now mentor, one of my mentors, Nanta Ensom. And I'd read Nanta's books. I had no idea where in the world she was located. But after reading her books, I just felt so resonant with her teachings. And I thought, I have to find out where she is. I need to have a reading or something with her. And it turned out she literally was practicing 5 minutes from my home. So like could have been anywhere in the world. Crazy. Yeah. So I actually started to join her meditation circles. And what ended up happening in the meditation circles was my channel was so open that I was able to read other people in the circle, but I wouldn't do it in front of them. After they'd leave, I'd go to Nanta and say, Nanta, I felt this, 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 and this. Is this normal? And she was looking at me like, girl's a psychic.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's cut to the
so
chase. You're psychic. Yeah.
a psychic. And so from there, I took myself off to, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it was an intuitive intensive up here in Byron Bay
Oh my
before we
God.
lived here.
I love
It
that.
was,
Sign me up.
it was probably about 5 years ago now. It was brilliant. And it was up past the roadie. And so for 5 days, I was going in. I was the youngest by, I reckon, by at least 6 or 7 years. And I was reading strangers, like thrown in the deep end. And that week we learned everything from direct channel to telepathy. It was a lot of hands-on practice, and a lot of just reading, channeling, a little bit of mediumship, but not too much. And at the end of that week, the teacher was like, Hollie, you have a gift. You need to actually do something with this. And here I am still thinking I'm fluking it, even though I'm getting like,
You're like, that's a good
names and like specifics. I'm like, I'm just kind of, I don't know. I don't really know. And so from then I went to study with Nanta for 4 years and I dove into everything with her from, oh gosh, like mediumship and crossing over lost souls to oracle to channel to all of it. And I wrapped up with Nanta maybe a year ago. Yeah.
It's amazing. And like, I think the more you dive into this work, the more you realize like you have just scratched the surface. Like there is so much to dive into. And like, and it's exciting, especially when you're like on this psychic journey and you start uncovering more and more gifts and one thing leads to another. Like it's literally like this little woolen thread that just keeps on unraveling.
Never ends.
Yeah. And it's just been so exciting for you to start weaving in like this business aspect, which is awesome. And there's so many people who really like are opening up to their psychic gifts and weaving it into business. So I don't know if you could sort of riff on how you sort of use your intuition in business, not in a client setting, but actually in like creating offerings, creating content. Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so my creative channel is purely like I tend to work with my intuition. So yeah, your creativity lives in your womb space. So everything that I do in activating my creative channel is through whatever I feel in the moment. So my energetic practices and the practices that master and hone in my intuitive knowing are the practices that then lend themselves to me having creative visions for what I want to create in my business. So you know, you look at your energetic practices as meditation, whether that's guided or your own practice. Beauty is actually a really big energetic practice for me, being surrounded by beauty, flowers, oils, scent.
The five senses sort of.
The five senses, exactly. Everything sensual. Like right now I'm sitting with my cacao. I've got the flowers here. I've got my mist. Like it's all
artwork behind.
Artwork behind, like it's a whole bloody thing. But it's important because it drops me into that feminine resonance. And when we're in our feminine energy, we can access channel. So this is my kind of way of life now. So I could be walking, you know, feeding my baby or kind of having a on the surface and nothing day, but be constantly getting channeled download because I'm tending to my creativity, my intuition, and my feminine energy so frequently. It's without question, like music, everything I do is honing in on my energetic imprint. And because of that, the inspiration is on overflow. It's there's a tab. I'm about to release 2 offerings, and the next one after that is landing. Like it's just there's a backlog.
So good. I'm going to go rogue on my questions because I've completely gone off track.
Go rogue.
So I love how you've spoken about this like way to tap into our feminine energy in business, which is so important when you run a creative heart, soul-led business. But how do you weave in the masculine? Like, what does that sort of look like? And just for anyone listening, we're not talking about feminine, masculine energies in female, male. It's more of an energy and an essence. So I really want to get that clear before we dive in. But how does the masculine show up in your business?
So it's classic 3-5. You go one end of the spectrum. And for a long time, I was flailing and running my business from predominantly feminine energy, which was just intuiting everything and feeling into things and like surrendering to the timelines and trusting in divine timing. And then you just get nothing done. So the masculine for me in business shows up in structure, in routine, in setting boundaries, in me knowing that once a week, because now I have my baby, it was different when I had all the time in the world, but once a week I will sit at my laptop and I will write to my community. And that's just a given, it's happening. Or I will have a Zoom call with my right-hand woman once a month and we'll go through the finances, we'll go through cash flow, we'll go through the actual months ahead and what I need to launch when. Like, none of that is fluky. All of that is planned. But then what that does is it holds me in my feminine to be more creative, because I feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's what the masculine does for my feminine expression. My masculine expression goes, these are the parameters that make Hollie feel safe, and these are how the feminine can dance within that safety. And that feels
100%.
really good. Yeah.
I'm so visual. So like for me, I'm like the masculine is like a timetable structure. And then the feminine sort of weaves into these sort of like beautiful creative container spaces to create within that. So like from a really practical sense, if you're listening to this and being like, oh cool, how am I going to implement this in my day? It's really about creating like time blocking, would you suggest? And then sort of weave into that.
Absolutely. And it's not too hectic. Like I don't even have a timetable up where I'm like, this day
Yeah,
this and color coordinated. And I know there are people that froth on that and go like, that's amazing. But I find that can lend itself too much into math. It's more having the foundational practices, and they're going to look different for everyone, on doing what, by when, and why, and then letting the creativity dance over the top.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, especially in the spiritual community. So many people lean towards that feminine side, and it's like, oh, like, you know, Mercury's in retrograde. We're not doing the podcast today. It's like, no, we're doing it. We've made a commitment, and like, let's show up. I think that's really
exactly
important.
it. Making a commitment, and making a commitment to self and to your community. I feel that when we go too overtly in our feminine in business, we make a lot of promises that we don't step into. And so our community can lose trust in us because we're constantly going to launch the next thing, but it never happens.
And it never happens. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So it's being true to your word and your creations.
Yeah. And so much magic can unfold from that, really showing up consistently for your community. So thanks so much for touching on that. And I kind of want to go back to like that point where you've just done all this psychic work and development, and you've done the courses. How did you find that sort of like shifting into this new, like, I want to say like version, I'm doing like inverted commas. How did you go shifting to this new version of Hollie, like, and showing up in the community? Like, how was that shift for you?
It was terrifying. I was so scared. I wasn't ever fully in the spiritual closet. I know that's a term that goes around where it's like, I use that hide our spiritual loves or talents. I wasn't fully in. I was always kind of open about the things. But when it came to me actually owning, I am psychic, I am intuitive, I am a medium, and I will read for you, it took poking and prodding. I was actually away for a friend's 30th, and all of the women who were at this event are leaders in spiritual personal development in Australia. And so they all sat me down one by one and went, read for me, read for me, read for me, read for me. Like, it was intense. There were like women that I admired for years going, you have to read for me. And so I did about 10 readings over that weekend.
Oh my God.
I'd never do it again, by the way. I was exhausted by the end.
Baptism by fire.
Totally. But it was so good because they were like, Hollie, if you can read for us, you can read for people. And then the word of mouth spread. So I think I did a literal announcement post. It was far away, like too far away now to remember. But from there, word spread. And anytime I have my intuitive calendar open, I am booked out. And I'm not just booked out for the week ahead. I'm booked out for months and months and months. There's a constant wait list. I've never had to market my readings. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's a testament to the work I do.
100%.
So it wasn't a massive, here I am and here's what I'm doing, and everyone like book a session with me. It kind of just became its own thing, which I'm really grateful for.
And for a projector 3-5, like really being recognized for your gifts, that's really the symbol or the message that you're on the right path and you're doing the right thing for you. So yeah, it's incredible. And just like seeing your work and everything unfold and the new offerings you're creating, like I cannot wait for them to be birthed. They're gonna change a lot of businesses and lives, which I'm excited about.
Thank you.
That's all right. That's all right. So the next one I really want to chat about is like we've spoken a little bit about like, you reading for the ladies and stuff, but what sort of like blocks? Was it self-sabotage coming up? Was it feeling, I don't know if it's not inauthenticity, but anything around that area that was showing up when you were moving into this work?
It was mainly fear of perceived judgment and what people would think of me. So people I went to school with, because I cared at the time. Don't care anymore.
Yeah, don't give a
if you're listening, no. People I went to school with, people who were watching, like, I'm pretty sure Snapchat was a thing at a time. So my Snapchats and like, what would my family think? And to be honest, I actually did get some pretty abrasive comments from family members and like kind of taking digs at me, and not in a particularly nice way, but I showed up anyway because it wasn't an imposter syndrome. I knew enough. I'd done years and years of study at this point. I knew that this was work that I was needing to do, but it was really that, oh gosh, how am I going to show up in this fully owning it, because there are so many naysayers. And at the time, truly, there wasn't as much activity in the spiritual realms as there is now, especially in Sydney, especially out in the Hills District where I lived. Like, it wasn't common. And so I really had to get comfortable with being the outcast and perceived stones thrown my way. That was the biggest hurdle for me. Yeah, the perceived judgment of others. I mean, it still is to a degree today.
Yeah, and it's interesting you use the word perceived judgment, because I know for me, I think there's a lot of judgment out there coming my way, but I'm like, what's the truth of the matter? And like, yes, there might be, but we build these stories in our head and we think so many people are caring or judging or criticizing, but really everyone's so in their own head about what other people are thinking about them. They're not thinking about you. So like, what would you, so say if somebody like a naysayer reached out to you, how would you sort of like deal with that or approach that, just for anyone that's listening that really wants to start like embracing their authentic self but is just worried about what people are going to say? How would you approach that situation?
Well, I mean, if someone made a comment about me directly on my public profile that I didn't agree with, I probably wouldn't even enter the conversation today. If you were talking to me a few years ago, I would have like held my own and fought back and like fought fire with fire. But I'm at the point now where people can say what they want to say, but if they're coming over to my platform and saying things about me, I'm pretty much just going to delete and block. Like, I'm not interested in engaging in conversations. If it's a constructive question, I will absolutely answer. And I do it with the intent of love. I don't do it with the intent of proving someone right or wrong, or apologizing for something that wasn't ever intended. So I guess if someone's listening to this and they're holding themselves back because of that perceived judgment, I mean, the judgment's going to come whether you step into this version of you or not. Like, it doesn't actually matter how you're showing up. There is going to be some semblance of someone judging you for something. So wouldn't you rather be judged for the thing that you love more than anything in the world than judged for the thing that you're probably judging yourself for as well? You know, there's a lot of liberation and freedom in standing behind a choice that makes you feel really good. And then the perceived judgments they kind of wash away.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that like I've been through a big journey of sort of stepping into my authentic self, and it's like, when you judge for your authentic self, like, that's your truth. So it doesn't hurt as much as if you were judged for potentially a mask or like some sort of way that you felt you needed to show up to be accepted. So yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I want to chat about this journey that you've been on into motherhood. And this is totally going rogue from my questions, but
love it.
You've been on such a journey, and like, what's been like the major, not so much challenges, but like the major things that you've been moving through in motherhood? Do you want to sort of like talk on that?
It's probably gonna take people by surprise, but I just had a really awful, I mean, my birth went rogue, but I've processed that to the best degree I can without screaming into pillows every day. But you know, do you know what I will say? My birth taught me how freaking strong my body is. So my baby girl was posterior, which is the most painful labor you can have. I was aiming to birth at home, and I did 37 hours without pain relief of posterior active labor. For any woman who's been through labor, she understands what that means. I was on saline drips. It was awful. And then I ended up transferred to hospital. My labor went for 47 hours in total. It was a whole thing. But that actually gifted me, surprisingly, a reconnect with my body and how strong she is. That said, probably the biggest challenge for me stepping into motherhood is that I've ended up having to swallow my pride in a number of things I said I would never do. And so there's that ego, very 3-5 of like the lowest of lows that we need to pick ourselves up out of to then teach from. And for me, God, everything from bottle feeding and formula feeding. My breastfeeding journey was absolutely horrific. I have PTSD. I won't go into it, but it was absolutely savage and awful and so horrible. And so I had to resort to things like bottle feeding and formula feeding, which I told myself I'd never do. And so the judgment I had about myself with that, sleeping, co-sleeping, having a little girl in the bed with us, which is now my favorite thing in the world. But at the time I said I'd never do it. Dummy usage, like, oh my God, we are the best parents ever when we don't have children. And then you get thrown into having a child and you're like, oh shit, every high horse I've sat on is gone now, and I'm sitting in the dirt on the ground. Shit, I need to pick myself up right now. And so that's been the biggest part of the experience, is that, like, not even mini ego deaths, massive, like, soul gut wrenching ego deaths times a billion.
Yeah.
Like,
and I love,
every day.
like, you don't do things by half. I'm like, if you're going in, you're going all in.
All in. I feel everything. I'm like, okay, lay it on me, which is fine. But also I was very tired and not from sleep deprivation.
Well,
just another thing.
I kind of want to finish on, because I know I want to keep the time tight tonight just for this chat, but I want to finish on these 2 offerings, if you can do some little sneak peek previews and just how people might connect with you, or maybe even book a session when you're opening up your books down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Shan. So the 2 offerings that have landed for me, it's so interesting because for 6 years in my business, I ran the same programs. And then since becoming a mother, I'm like, nah, we're going brand new. I'm a new woman. I'm a new version of me, like the newest I've ever been. So the first one is called Guided. And Guided is going to be an intuitive intensive. And it's for anyone that wants to learn more about their intuition, where it lives, how they can use it in their everyday life. We talk about the clairs, we dive more into psychic, but not really, I guess, psychic potential to a degree, but more how to access, hone in, master and trust your intuition. So that's going to run over 3 to 4 weeks, a few live videos. It's going to be epic. And then there's Channel. Channel is like the masculine side of my business, and Channel is going to be a mastermind for psychics, mystics, seers, and magic makers in business, because I see incredible psychics. I see incredible magic weavers in business, and they don't value what they do, firstly. I mean, they change people's lives with what they do, but they don't value it enough. They literally communicate to your loved ones who have passed away, but they charge $50. It's like, no, come on. We are going to own our financial well-being. We're going to step into business acumen, and we're actually going to own our essence and our worth as a businesswoman or a business person. So that's what Channel's going to be. It's going to be a mastermind of incredible people in this work, making good money and allowing ourselves to, and growing from there. So yeah, the 2 together are kind of the fem and mass sides of my business.
Yeah, I love that so much. Yeah,
it feels exciting. Yeah, thanks, Shan.
And even just that, I like seeing the photos as well that you've showed, and it's like the masculine in like you in a power suit, and then the feminine in this beautiful flowy dress. I love how you've just like addressed everything there.
Thanks, Gal.
So I'm just so grateful for your time tonight. I know you're a busy new mum, and I'm sure you've got plenty to do. So yeah, really grateful for you chatting and just chatting all things woo-woo. It's my favorite thing to talk about. And thank you all for tuning in today. Really grateful for your time, and I will see you on the next episode.